So welcome back to another episode. And this is a really exciting episode for me. I can't believe who I'm sitting with here. And it's really weird. You came up to me after my panel. And you're like,
great panel. It was a lot of fun.
It was a kind of a crazy panel. But we're talking, and you say that you like Phantasy Star, and I'm like, yeah, I love Phantasy Star too.
Yeah, you said Phantasy Star and Ease, and I'm like, wow, like...
Yeah, kindred brothers here going on.
Like, I think we gotta like be friends or something.
Yeah,
It's like mandatory.
It's mandatory. So we start talking, and all of a sudden, this is crazy. I didn't realize you were a guest here as well.
Yeah, most people don't because it's like, I'm a fan like everybody else. So I go to the programming and I watch panels and I enjoy them and I love coming to these things. And, his panel was great because it was like 18 plus like labeled on the schedule. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be good stuff.
It's crazy. And you are the 1994 Sega champion.
Yeah, Sega World Champion, Sonic and Knuckles, Rock the Rock. You can look it up on YouTube. I guess it had to do with Alcatraz, and it was on MTV, and it was shown around the world. So
I'm telling you, for any old school fan of Sega,
Sonic the Hedgehog,
or even old school gaming in general, we're gonna go on a little journey here through the ages and revisit a lot of things. Wow. I'm so excited to talk about all this. And you also are a game developer who's worked on the Alpha series, Street Fighter
Alpha 3, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Rival Schools,
and we're also,
Gauntlet 4, Primal Rage.
We get to find out where the name Techromancer came from.
Oh gosh, no!
On the Dreamcast, this guy. So tell me, in the '90s, we were nearly the same age. How did you get involved with the Sega Championship?
Okay, well, it started from earlier championships, the first contest I ever entered. I was born in Hawaii, raised in Hawaii. I lived there till, I don't know, I was 11 or 12 or something. And then my family moved to California. But before that, they had the search for Hawaii's Nintendo Champion, which was a contest held by Nintendo, Holiday Mart, Daiei, which was like a Japanese department store, and the local TV station, KNL 13. And they had regional, they had 3 different stores. So they had preliminaries at their stores. Wow. And the game was Super Mario Brothers. And the rules were great. If you beat the game, then it's whoever had the highest score. Yeah. So, in every time they had a round, I was the only one who beat the game. So, basically nobody could beat me. And I was, doing speedrunning before speedrunning was invented. Wow. And it had a really good rule set. You had 10 minutes, and whoever got the farthest with the most points and beating the game.
And so, how did that lead you into the final?
Well, starting, like I said, if I win the Hawaii Nintendo Championships, then it started getting me thinking, every time they have a contest, I should probably enter it.
And you were just doing so well. Good. What did you have? How were you better than other players?
I just loved video games.
Me too.
I had a stack of, I would, count how many games I have, month to month, and I'm I've got 50 games, and I beat, all of them, or I have, really high scores.
It's kind of like the wizard, I got this many Nintendo games.
So, kids growing up, sometimes, you have them do sports, or you have them do dance, or you have them do, karate, or, whatever, right? Yeah. I had video games, and my parents didn't really push me to do other extracurricular activities. So I did what I wanted to, and, eventually I grew up with, some stuff like a ColecoVision. I was, really young when that one came out, but...
So your parents were very, behind you in all this stuff.
It seems that way. Okay, so get this. Yeah. They were totally against me playing video games until I started making money with it. When I won
made money back then. It's amazing.
When I was a kid and I entered the Hawaii Nintendo Championships, everything changed. Then they were really super supportive.
How much did you win in that?
That was I won $1,000 TV and some other stuff.
But still, back then that's cool.
Yeah, back then when you're 10 years old, then it's super good. And that's the first thing I ever won, substantial, I could say, hey, I won something.
So how many things did you win before you got into the Sega Championship?
Okay, so there's that one, the Hawaii State Nintendo Championships, and so I'm the Hawaii State Nintendo Champion. Then the Nintendo World Championships was the next year in 1990, and I entered in Oakland, and I didn't win there, but I went the next week to Los Angeles, and that's where I won. And I also met other people that were really into games, and we became friends. And that's how I got into the industry, actually, was because I met Mike Klug, who you met earlier tonight.
Yeah.
He's the one who got me in the business. We hung out, and at the end of the tournament, he showed me his business card. It said Tengen, and I'm like, holy crap! You work for Tengen, Tengen Tetris. And I just things were forming in my head where it was
especially back then without the internet, that was big. Gamers were here, companies were out here.
And I was a big study of game companies and history and things like that. And I knew about the Tengen Nintendo war and all the things having to do with them losing the rights to to Tetris and that sort of thing. So I was just like, wow, that's just amazing. I just met someone like who's really important.
Yeah. So you kept that contact over the years?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I started kind of working at Tengen almost immediately after that.
How old were you?
Really young. I can't say how old young, but really young.
You kind of got in behind closed doors.
Yeah.
What were you doing in gaming back, like working wise?
So they had a division. It was like a product. I guess it's sort of like customer service, but they did game counseling. They took in RMAs for defective products. They sent manuals to people who needed them. If someone had like game counseling was like help. You give people like, I can't beat this level on Gauntlet, and I'd say like, hey, try this code 43C BBYHYY.
You were that guy I was phoning.
Might have been one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm stuck in this dungeon and fences store help.
And by the way, that was actually a Gauntlet code for NES because I memorized all of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and actually it's kind of funny because when I read Nintendo Power as a kid, I would see like the bios of the agents, and I'd be like, I'm gonna be like that guy. That guy's good at these games, and I'm gonna be a game counselor someday. But it didn't occur to me that could actually happen, and then it started happening. So they did all these things in this department, and we did reviews and evaluations of products that might come out or that were under development. If that game sucked, I could say like it sucks, and then they wouldn't bring it out.
Yeah.
Or if it needs improvement, this is what you need to do to make the game good and make it better. And I have had a lot of good experiences with that, particularly with games like Gauntlet 4. I helped mold that into.
So you do the game counseling. What year was that?
That's like 91. 1991.
So how did you get into the championship at Sega?
Sega. Okay. Well, like I said, the Nintendo World Championships I didn't win in Oakland. I did win in LA, so I went to the finals, and that's where I fought like Thor Ackerland, and he won the whole thing. But that was good.
We were hanging out with him earlier.
Yeah, we were hanging out with him.
I'm just like
Game On Expo was amazing.
It's
like
amazing.
All these historic people were there. Like
I know.
Nintendo PlayStation was there. This is like crazy.
I was talking to this guy. We were having fun, and I'm like, oh my god, he won the Nintendo Championship. I'm like.
Yeah.
And then I'm talking to you, and I'm like, you won the Sega
Sega
Championship? Like, what the hell is going on? And like,
no, it was a crazy lineup.
Time back then, eh?
Yeah. So I still knew I was like, I could probably enter these things and have a shot. So, in 94, Sega started overtaking Nintendo in market share. It's really popular. They really hit the ball out of the park with the marketing.
And all that stuff was
Tom Kalinske was just like kicking butt.
Kicking serious ass.
With the marketing, and like people would say, Sega! And it was just like, that was like the thing. That was like a catchphrase. Yeah. And it was because they made Sega look cooler than Nintendo, and Nintendo became like a kid's toy.
Blast processing.
Yeah, which is funny because there is some legitimacy to that, like what could have been behind that marketing campaign, but they kind of went about it the wrong way. So in '94, Sega was on top of their game. They
had a lot of money. They started putting it into
and that money could be used to promote games in ways that hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
And their idea for that was the Rock the Rock tournament. And so they
had a whole bunch of celebrities that were promoting this, and I heard this in Console Wars. The audio tape of the book. Is it Console Wars?
I think that's what it was.
I think
I mean, if it was about Tom Kalinske, it's
Tom Kalinske. Sega getting him at the beach at first and bring him into Sega and. At first they were against what he was doing, then they're like, okay, this is we're all for it. But he spent a lot of money, brought all these celebrities in.
And not only that, but Alcatraz Island, like they actually did work to restore the island and allow people to visit areas that weren't like previously open.
Yeah.
So Rock the Rock not only was a historic video game tournament, but it helped people visit Alcatraz.
So the whole thing was on Alcatraz.
Yeah. Well, the preliminaries were actually held around the world.
All
at
around the world.
Hard Rock Cafe, right?
Yeah,
the preliminaries at Hard Rock Cafe. I know they had people from like Brazil, France, Japan particularly, Canada. I don't know all the countries, but there was like 30 or so contestants.
Yeah.
And when they won their regional, like you had to play Sonic and Knuckles, the first level, get as many rings as you could in 3 minutes. The winners of each regional were flown to San Francisco to then go to Alcatraz. Now, I entered in San Francisco's regional, so I actually didn't get a free trip to San Francisco.
You were just there.
I was like the only one who didn't get a free trip to San Francisco. But what I did get was I got the support of the crowd and a lot of the people who were...
local supporters.
Yeah, if you watch the video, like the video is insane because like I get all this like crowd cheering, and I have like some home video also that no one else has seen yet, but it might go up sometime. And, like the people that were there were really rooting for San Francisco because it was like hometown, and also Sega was based in San Francisco or the Bay Area at the time. So
correct. So at that point, all of the world is these different America is these different competitions, and then how many people go to Alcatraz from there?
It's like 30. The 30 from around the world.
30 people.
And then
so how did you feel back then about the pressure? Were you like a cocky player? Like, I got this. I got no problem. Were you that guy? Or were you like, man, I'm practicing at home, like?
I'm trying to remember what kind of character I was.
What kind
exactly,
of, yeah, what kind of,
you can see it on the video, and you know, like I said, it's like it's up on YouTube.
What do you see in yourself from back then?
I was starting to really get my legs with confidence. Nintendo Championships, I wasn't so confident, but the Sega one, I don't know. I guess I was like a little bit older.
You'd done it a couple times, you know, with other.
And I was like the guy that went, yeah, like I would like yell, and then like it really get the crowd pumped up, and like the energy was just amazing. So I kept doing it. So I have this victory roar. You can see it on the broadcast, and it was a lot of fun. I look back at that and actually almost like kind of. I wish I were more like that now. Like, and I did do a victory roar when we were kind of doing the Game On Expo Retro Championships. I did that a couple of times.
That's cool.
It just felt kind of cool.
So 30 people went, but how many people all around?
Oh man, that place was like packed. They sent
but,
like thousands of people there, like TV crews.
But how many people like were in the competition? Was it like 1 million people?
Oh, I don't know actually, because like I said, each regional, like the Japan was in Joypolis, which is a big arcade, so they actually had.
So was Japan a part of the
Yeah.
Wow.
The guy from Japan came in 4th.
Wow.
And they had some pretty good players. Like one of the guys was we were trying to track down is Jeff Falco, and he was in
the picture of him.
He was in the Nintendo World Championships, and he came in like in the top 7, and he came in 9th at Alcatraz. So and I have a picture of me and him talking. And
nobody knows where he is now.
No one knows where he is.
Doesn't have a Facebook?
I asked Thor like. Thor Ackerland, Nintendo World Champion. Am I the last one to see this guy? Like, is this the last?
Is he still around?
Right. And Jeff Falco's an interesting character because he would wear like hats and shirts that would say Jeff knows Tetris or Jeff knows video games.
Which is like wow.
Which is like, does this guy have an ego or is it just part of his character?
Is he just joking around?
Yeah.
Is he making fun? Yeah.
That's kind of crazy because like some of this, maybe we're like professional wrestlers and we need to have a persona or like some kind of like alternate name. And I mean nowadays esports is so big and so crazy, and they do have like sponsorships and like online identities and different names and things like that. But back then it was just our name. It was like I was Chris Tang and Jeff Falco was Jeff Falco and Thor Ackerland was Thor Ackerland, even though you don't expect someone to actually be named Thor, but it is his real name.
Right? What a great name for the guy to win that championship.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
So 30 people, and we played.
What games?
It was Sonic and Knuckles and Sonic 3. So Sonic and Knuckles for the preliminaries and the rounds leading to the finals, and Sonic 3 using Knuckles as a character, not Sonic, on the last level of the game.
Had you played these games before, or like?
So Sonic and Knuckles was not released yet, but we could practice like at the venue, and they gave us time to practice.
So that you did get it.
You can ground, but.
It wasn't like Super Mario, like the Wizard, where Super Mario.
You've never played it before.
Oh, what's this game?
Oh, I mean, they've done that. Like the Nintendo World Championships 2015, they actually they sprung like, hey, here's Mario Maker, here's this level no one's seen, and you go play it, and then like everybody dies.
Yeah, of course.
So it wasn't quite as bad, but on Sonic and Knuckles, there's like a finite like number of rings you can get. So you could practice for like a day, or 2 days, or for your preliminaries, but. In the end, like there's only so much you can do, and if you ever get hit and you play badly, you lose it immediately. Like that was the thing, and that's why if you look at my strangely awkward interviews when I was a teenager, I would always say never get hit, like always stay safe and things like that. Because if you get hit in Sonic, you lose all your rings, and your score is rings for the tournament.
Of course, right.
3 minutes and get as many rings as you can.
How many days did the tournament take?
Oh, gee, we're there. I don't know, like 2 days at least.
2 days.
So.
Was this like? This must be the highlight moment of your youth. Like, who has a moment like this?
There's like I said, it wasn't my first tournament. So.
Yeah, no, but for me, I'm a huge video game fan. We grew up with the same games. I didn't have the same experience. So for me and the audience watching, we're like, wow, this is incredible. Like, you must look back and be like, wow, did that really happen? Sometimes I was like, wow. I
came to this event and people talk about it and they want to know more about it. So I showed them the video and I've shown the video to like on my phone about like 10 times now at least today, and the people get really into it. They're like, oh my god,
I know.
Either I remember this or I can't believe I didn't see this. Or like, wow, that's so cool. Or they're gonna check it out more on YouTube when they get home.
So how was the feeling when it was getting narrowed down to the last?
I mean, the pressure was there, and like I said, I have lost tournaments before, and I've not won Nintendo Championship, so I just knew I had to focus. I would do this thing where I'd close my eyes and I'd like imagine the game in my head, and I'd actually play the level.
Wow.
And try to like rewind and fast forward what I needed to work on and what I was sure of, and then when I actually play the game, I would see that situation, and then I would key in and I'd make sure I nail it every time.
And that's why you did.
I did well, yeah. I might have messed up a couple of times, and there's one part where I screwed up a little bit, but everything turned out okay. And but they changed the game. Like I said, when the came to the final two fighting each other on Sonic 3. Sonic 3 was something I did get to practice as much as I wanted to anytime. I knew the game very well. I knew the last level really well. My little brother Michael actually helped me train for it. So by the time I was done practicing on Sonic 3, I knew every part of the level. I knew every door that could be opened. I knew where every ring was. And in my run in the finals, I played a perfect run, and I got every ring that I could possibly get with 7 seconds left. Wow. So if you look on the MTV video where they have this countdown where it goes 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, it's all BS.
Yeah, actually, of course.
I did my victory roar with 7 seconds left. I mean, the other competitor was really good, actually. His scores were, on the preliminary rounds, were higher than mine. But to be honest, I was actually throttling my power, kind of like Dragon Ball Z, like Goku wears weighted armor. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to take off this weighted armor now and actually fight you for real.
And then you went, boom.
But the thing is, I didn't want people seeing my pattern.
Yep.
I didn't want them seeing what I was learning while I was learning it. Yep. So I'd actually keep it in my memory and not show everything I knew. Yeah. So I was kind of keeping it like at about 80%. You
just kept dying and just say, oh, geez, this game's so hard.
Well, no, not dying, but at least...
but just to show them that,
I was just like, okay.
So they dropped the guard.
So they wouldn't know, like, if I had to dial it up and actually get higher rings to qualify, I would, like, amp it up. So at the end, like, it kind of went up. But they had a Sega... After the tournament ended, they had me go into Sega headquarters, and they had me play in front of their... like every one of their
We're going to get to that. Oh, okay. So we get down to the final game.
So fine.
Yeah.
First. Right.
Yeah, for sure. This is the big moment.
They made this gas chamber looking thing, or they said it was a gas chamber. I'm not sure. Is that like offensive or something?
No, I think it's funny that, they were really like going all up.
Yeah.
Alcatraz Island.
Yeah. Some things they didn't think through, because when they put the stations, the Sega kiosks for the gas chamber segment, they were like both facing the sun, so the sun's glare made it so you couldn't even see. So in the end, they actually rotated them around, and it turned out a lot better. They had to kind of pivot on the fly to make that production work. But yeah, it was me versus Mark Grenane, who was like the Blockbuster world champion from, I think, the previous year or pretty recently. It was within the same era. So he was a really good player, and it was like a really fierce showdown. And I knew how good he was good because he was getting those kinds of scores. And if he had studied Sonic 3 as much as I did, then yeah, I was, definitely, I had to go all out and not like miss a single ring and not make any mistakes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
So it came down to the last little bit. We're like, what was it like?
7 seconds.
What was it like standing there? You're like, I'm in my final game. Were you starting to choke a little bit?
Nah, not that time.
I love
that
it.
One. Yeah,
pure confidence.
That one was confident. That one was like, I know that level in Sonic 3. I know what I need to do. People believed in me. I had to nail it.
Yeah.
Like, I felt solid going in, and as long as I could do it faster than the other guy and better, then I'd be good.
Yeah. And so the moment came, all of a sudden you did it, and you're like...
So the moment was actually, I got to the end of my run, there's like a door that opens up, and there's like 2 ring boxes of 10 rings each, and you bounce on them, and that's the last rings that you can get in that pattern, in that level. Hit pause at like about 7 or 8 seconds left. I looked at the other guy's screen, and like I saw then how many rings he had, and I already knew, like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like so confident. I just walked away from my station, turned around, and just went, and that's the thing that was like on MTV.
That's
and
so
then
cool.
and then he did it again. They like put it in slow motion at the end. It was like a slow motion.
Yeah.
And it was like
and
pretty epic.
And at that point, that's a place in video game history.
Yeah, I guess you could say so.
It absolutely is. 1994,
1994,
you win.
at the height of Sega's popularity.
Now you have to tell everybody what you won, because he was telling me and Pete Dorr and Alpha tonight about what he won. We were like, oh my god, for 1994?
It's $25,000 like cash.
Yeah. But it's the other thing that's so interesting.
2 years worth of everything Sega made, including
back then.
Yeah, back then. So I got like 2 32Xs and 2 Genesises and a Saturn and all the Saturn games they made at the time.
That's
and all the Genesis games.
Do you know how many games that was? Like, how many?
It's a lot of them. But I was bad. I didn't.
Tell them what you. Yeah. Because not all games are good.
Back then, there wasn't GameStop, so what you would do is you would take a game to Toys R Us and then they'd turn it into what we called Jeffrey money. And they would turn the Jeffrey money into other games.
Oh, I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It would be like money, but it would have like Jeffrey the giraffe on it.
You just keep all the games you liked and just kind of...
Yeah, I kept the vast majority of them.
Yeah. Did they send you like everything like that came up?
Sometimes more than everything. And sometimes I get some stuff twice. It was like weird.
They like, I don't know if we sent him this. Send him again.
Yeah. I think they probably missed some things too.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are certain key games that I really... Like, getting Phantasy Star 4 in the mail was like...
I certainly didn't get that.
But I mean, so to be honest, I'd actually played Phantasy Star 4 like more than a year before because I got the Japanese one imported on day one.
Yeah.
But getting the English one, I was just like, yes, this is why I won the contest because I could get Phantasy Star 4 for everybody else. A lot of the stuff I got was like before it was actually on the shelf by just a little bit. So
and especially then before the internet and stuff like that. That's like. Oh
I got some, like, they would send me weird things like power strips and just other, I don't know. I might have some in storage I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
So you win this. How is life after that moment? And I mean, is it like such a high to a bit like, oh, okay, now I'm settling down? Like,
well, like I said, video games are kind of like my life. It was a thing that I was good at when I was a kid. Other kids had sports. Other kids had, maybe other things that they were good at. Video games were my thing.
Yeah.
So I found it really easy to get energy from that and be inspired. Like, it's just another part of living that kind of life. Like, there are a lot of things that some people who really like video games are really into it did. Like, we would write for magazines. I did some of that.
What magazines do you write for?
Some really kind of small, crappy, like, no-name ones.
Yeah,
there's one called High End.
But you're still a fan, right?
So type gaming and I mean, I look back at it and it was fun.
Yeah,
I'd write like little strategy things.
And then you got into working on video games. Like, how did that happen?
I mean, I was kind of like I said, from Nintendo World Championships, I would like start coming into Atari.
Yeah.
And we had that department, and I would answer the phone, do game counseling.
But that's game counseling to game development, which is even.
In that department, like I said, they'd have programmers back there, and they'd need like us to play the game. We'd find out how things work, then we'd break the game, and it's like testing now, right? Mm-hmm. But back then, it was more like a combined like full department that handles not just testing, but some product development things and writing reviews, writing reports. Oh, I wrote a lot of game manuals. Like I wrote the game manuals for like Gauntlet 4, Robo LS. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head.
That's so
Actually,
cool.
Here's something else that's funny. So for Tengen Japan, in their game manuals that were released in Japanese, they would have an interview with one of the developers, usually be like a programmer. And they would sometimes interview like people who were from the U.S. division, say something about the game, right? Like if you're the programmer, like what was the cool thing about this? Apparently, the people at Tengen Japan or the Tengen U.S. division, not Tengen Japan, didn't really like the programmer on Rampart.
Yeah.
So they said, "Hey, Chris, you're the Rampart guy. Why don't you do the interview?" So there's a biography of me in the back of the Mega Drive Rampart manual in Japanese that I wrote, saying talking about Rampart, and in that book, it mentions the 1990 Nintendo World Championships. So it's a Sega product that says Mega Drive on it, and there's like a little mention of a Nintendo World Championships in a Japanese manual.
That's cool, though.
So it's like sneaking this weird thing in there, and that was just part of my history.
And then you got into programming too, am I correct?
Well, I do that now.
But you learned how to do that over time. That's crazy.
Right, over time. Like back then, the tools were all proprietary. So you had people who did coding, but then you had people like me who were designers who used tools that go into the game. So like when I program the AI in Primal Rage, I'd write like a script. Blizzard does this punch.
So for a lot of old school players out there, Primal Rage, and I got to tell you, I saw that in the arcade, and I was like, whoa! It's a dinosaur fighting game.
It's a fighting game with dinosaurs.
That looks really. I don't want to say claymation, kind of more like Killer Instinct.
Well, it is claymation. Yeah. It's literally stop motion. It's not necessarily clay, but they used latex rubber puppets.
Yeah. And did you how you digitized it and just moved?
Yeah, they had 2 full-time stop motion animators, and they would take photos of each frame, and then they would digitize those, and then they would convert that down to like low res, and then they put them in the game, and I would put the hitboxes on them and issue the timings, and I'd tune it up, tweak it, make it feel playable.
So really, Primal Rage you worked on quite a lot. Like, real hands on.
Oh, definitely. That was your I was the guy like all the hitboxes, all the ranges, all the gameplay. Things. It's not my proudest work.
But it's a place in history too.
There are a lot of things that were in place before I joined the team that I couldn't change. Actually, the definitive version of Primal Rage is actually the Japanese arcade version. Supposedly, Galloping Ghost Arcade has the Japanese version board. Wow. And they were supposed to fly me out there to unveil it, but then something else there happened, so that didn't happen, and something else, my game got
unveiled. It'd be
unveiled.
interesting to try that version for you.
Right. Like, wow. So that version of the game, you can actually do special moves with one button. So for people who haven't played Primal Rage, The reason why it doesn't play very well is because the special moves require you to hold down multiple buttons, then wiggle the joystick. It's even worse on a control pad because your hand is on the right, and that means you have to have 2 fingers holding 2 buttons down, and then you have to like wiggle the D-pad. It's even more awkward.
Yeah.
So the game did not translate well to home. People couldn't figure out the moves in the arcade. Kids like to run up to a machine, especially something with monsters. They want to like just bang on it and have cool stuff happen, and nothing cool would happen because all the special moves required like insane dexterity and like it was hard to understand. At the very least, I got you could do the motion and push the buttons. So at least you didn't have to hold them down and then wiggle the joystick. Yeah. But the Japanese version of the game, the moves worked just like Street Fighter, like how I wanted it.
That would be cool.
So you just do the motion, hit one button, and then
cool.
it came out. So that's why it's like the definitive fun playing version of the game.
So how did you end up at Capcom? And we're going to get into all the Capcom games you worked on and all that kind of stuff.
So Primal Rage 2 is a big part of that. Coming off of Primal Rage 1 was extremely successful. It sold like 4 million copies, number 1 arcade game of 1994.
Jesus.
Did very well. So Primal Rage 2 was like a no-brainer. We're totally going to do it.
Yeah.
But then something happened like sort of midway in development, and that is Midway bought Atari Games. And Midway had Mortal Kombat, and there was a lot of redundancy and having a fighting game like a flagship fighting game that competed with their other flagship fighting game.
They didn't want to do that. They want to say, let's do more combat.
Yeah. We're still working on the game, though, and Primal Rage 2 was a fighting game that had dinosaurs that transformed into, like, giant titan humans, and then back, and they could do, like, these special moves. There's still...
Who came up with these ideas? That's like insane.
I mean... We had a small team, and we had some ideas that stuck, and morphing, transforming humans. That's something that they do now, like in games like Bloody Roar.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
Like there are other games that do that sort of thing now.
Dinosaurs transforming into huge.
Like Titan humans are actually really popular now. Like there's anime Attack on Titan and stuff.
Well, true. I guess in that way,
So it's kind of ahead of its time in some ways. But anyway, the game like played more like Street Fighter. It had 6 buttons. It tested so-so. It didn't test super well. But there are other issues like with hardware and internal company politics, and the game got canceled. There were like about 10 fighting games that Atari was developing, and they all got canceled. The only one that really came out that did well was Primal Rage, followed by maybe Mace, and that's about it. Everything else got canceled, including Primal Rage 2, which had some really cool technology behind it. It was actually streaming frame data off of the hard drive. It was one of the first games to have a hard drive. It came out around the same time as Killer Instinct, but it used the hard drive for streaming music, streaming background renderings, and streaming moves. So you'd attack, and the first few frames would be in RAM, but the rest would be streamed off the hard drive. So we had an insane amount of animation frames. So Primal Rage 2 was canceled. Now it's somewhat of a myth, and a legend. And there's one machine that you can play at the Galloping Ghost Arcade outside Chicago, and a lot of people actually travel just to that arcade just to play the game.
Let's try it out. See
and they fly me out there to do interviews and to do autographs and things that. Just because of Primal Rage 2, and it's great.
Cool. A lot of Primal Rage fans from back then.
So when Primal Rage 2 got canceled, I kind of thought it would come because Midway had bought Atari, and people were kind of thinking that might happen. So I kind of lined something up at Capcom ahead of time, and I had a buddy over there who had also worked at Atari. He was a producer. He became a producer later, but now I'm still working with him, actually. He was already over there, and I joined him, and we did this design support department that we helped localize games. We came up with new move systems for games, new gameplay mechanics. I said, like the 2-button EX specials were something that came
for
up
like
with.
Third Strike,
and like taunts that do special effects. Taunts that do special effects was actually something that I did in Primal Rage 2 as well.
So how about what games did you work on at Capcom? Let's go through the whole list.
I worked on a lot of the stuff in that whole late PlayStation, early Dreamcast era, or even just the Dreamcast era in general.
We're gonna get to Techromancer.
Oh gosh, no.
Let's just go to Techromancer for a second. So Techromancer is a fighting game with robots.
Yeah, it's a fighting. Yeah, it's like an anime robot mega battle where different
on
genres.
The Dreamcast.
You'd have your Gundams and you'd have your cute robots fighting like Transformer-looking things fighting Macross Valkyries, and they'd all.
It's crazy. It was awesome.
And they'd all have different technology and different things. And the original Japanese name for it was Kikayo, which means Machine King. So I said, you guys should just call it Machine King, because that sounds badass. And then they said, come up with a list of new...
But why wouldn't they have called it the Japanese name to begin with? Like, Capcom was pretty good for stuff like that. So why would they say, we don't want Machine King?
Actually, at that time, they weren't.
No,
No? Yeah, they would...
That's interesting, because I would have thought they was going, let's just go with that. Because Power Stone didn't change.
Yeah, it didn't. But I guess Kikayo was, literally a Japanese word. with kanji.
Oh, right.
And
so you're taking the translation saying it's this.
Yeah, and Machine King sounds like kind of cool.
Machine King sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, and I could just imagine like that guy screaming like the Japanese title screen goes Kikayo, and then like the US one would be Machine King.
I know, that'd be awesome.
But then, I made a list of names of stuff. Because that was one of the jobs I did, something I still do today, and I think I'm kind of okay at it. And I said, Techromancer is like a really interesting sounding name, but you should probably use it for like an RPG or something.
Where did the name Techromancer come from?
It's like necromancer, or but it also could mean like someone who's like obsessed with technology.
Oh, interesting.
It has many multiple meanings. I love like names
sorcery
with many,
version of technology, or
right?
Something. Yeah.
And there's even like a game that came out recently, I think, called Technomancer, which is really close, but they can't use Techromancer because Capcom probably still has it.
So you came up with a name, and they're like,
I actually said, don't use this name. It's cool, but use it for something else. And then they used it, and it became Techromancer, and they have recorded the voice for it, and yeah.
It was a weird name. I was always like, why is it called? I'm like, okay, it's just a Japanese name. And see, from my point of view, I was like, it's just that's the Japanese name. I didn't know.
No,
I didn't know about
Hikayo, and
I had no idea about the original.
Kind of wanted it to be Machine King, but
Machine King.
Okay.
So we blame you for Techromancer. It's cool though.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I've heard that before.
That's really cool.
But to me, as a fan, I'm just like, that. Well, okay.
And this kind of brings us, like, you worked on a lot of other games, but you're working on a game now. You kind of left all that kind of stuff in the past.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I learned from it, and what I learned was, like, there's a lot of games that I'd love to make, but if you work for a company, you don't really get a chance to have
do your own independent
dreams. And to put everything that you're good at into the product.
Yeah.
So with the game I'm working on now, it's a very small team, and everybody that's involved in it is doing the very best they can at what they do best. I'd say like five to seven.
Yeah.
Mostly, it's me, myself, Chris Tangs, as designer, doing coding, writing, everything. So many hats. Like I don't think I've actually quantified everything that I do on the game. Yeah. But I mean, you can add social media manager, webmaster, like
You just do it. You didn't even have a need in
IT,
right?
hardware, technology. Oh yeah, I had to design arcade controls for this thing.
Yeah.
And, it's made up of this like Tron-like joystick.
Yeah.
And then I had to mod it with a magnetic sensor array on the bottom, and then make it work with Unity engine.
You gotta tell these guys the name.
Okay, it's Strike Harbinger.
Yeah. And what it is, it's like Space Harrier and Phantasy Star, and what else?
It's a spiritual successor to Space Harrier and Phantasy Star.
It's
a lot of the best of Sega sci-fi games at their prime. Like the early Genesis days.
Yeah.
And I like that aesthetic.
I went around and I played it, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, you can just tell, like, I played Space Harrier back in the day, and this one's so smooth and beautiful.
Right. Like we want to give the same impression, but with modern technology.
Yeah.
So we have real-time physics, real-time lighting. I've sort of had a target of making the game run at 120 frames per second. So I can use my 120 FPS monitor or 120 hertz monitor on it at 1440p and just have it really fast,
beautifully smooth, and
wow.
And so you're about 1 year into development on this
about
game?
1 year to finish. We're like about 5 to 10% done. I'm still adding like the core gameplay features, but I spent a lot of time and effort making sure that the moment-to-moment movement and shooting and just everything's it feels so fluid, and that's one thing that
I played it and the controls were perfectly nice.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm really happy came through is that you see like a gap you want to fly through, you move the analog and you can just
perfect.
Like fly right through.
I felt like
you feel like you're one with it, and you're actually squeezing your own body like between where it needs to go.
That's why I was impressed. I'm like, why didn't Sega do this? And they're in a different headspace. Thank God you're doing it.
That's the sort of thing, like, when we were thinking of what game to make, originally we were going to do, like, some other kind of game, like maybe an action platformer or something, but there's so many action platformers out there, it didn't really need help. But I wanted to make something that I wanted to play, and then I was like, wow, I can't actually go out and get a new, like, version of Space Harrier or even Phantasy Star, like the original Phantasy Star series.
Yeah.
So you do these two games, and, sort of within the same theme space, that I sorely missed and loved, and like, whenever I'd get interviewed for my game tournaments, it would even be a Nintendo tournament.
Yes, this is good. We're talking about
so, like, in the Hawaii State Nintendo Championship, they asked me, what's your favorite game? And I had to say, well, it's this game called Phantasy Star, but it's actually not on Nintendo. It's on a Sega system. And then the person interviewing me had to explain that not all games are Nintendo, some are Sega.
Yeah, because that was on the Master System and Nintendo. And the Master System was so small.
But at the time, like, Phantasy Star 1 versus anything on Nintendo was so technologically superior.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Especially with the software tricks that Yuji Naka was doing.
Yeah, with the 3D dungeons, it was crazy stuff.
And the giant sprites with the dragons.
And that's something else is that when you won the championship, Yuji Naka was there.
Was right there. Yuji Naka and Roger Hector and all those. The top Sega guys were right there, and they're in the pictures.
Yeah,
it was like a dream come true. I really should have brought my Phantasy Star to have autograph. I didn't know
who knew.
Yeah,
I would have sent you one if I even knew. I was like, hey.
Yeah, well, I could have I live not that far away, but yeah, it's still
that would have been amazing.
I think I'll get it someday, hopefully.
So cool. So when is your game coming out?
Sometime 2017. We're working on an arcade version. Should be arcade. Console, PC, probably PC first, and arcade first, most likely too.
PlayStation 4?
Most likely.
Let's go for that, man.
We're experimenting, with VR, so there's a lot of things, a lot of new technology. It's going to be a really good-looking, fast game, and we want it to. A lot of games don't pay attention enough to frame rate and response and control and things like that.
Yeah.
They just kind of make the game as pretty as it can and still shots and then call it a day. But I want this thing to really feel good and take it to where it's never been before in terms of quality and play control and even story. It's not just going to be an action game. We want to have the sci-fi story like Phantasy Star.
We were kind of
mysteries, to unveil. And a lot
hidden
of
weapons, and cool
fan references, even things people who are fans of
we
that
talked
genre.
about a couple of those. That'd be
cool. So it's something we're really pouring our hearts into it. Our artist Kyoshi Okuma, he's contributed so much to the project, and we click so well as a team. Mm-hmm. And I think you talked to him a lot today. I was really happy that you did.
He was just so cool, and we have the same love of old school anime.
Yeah.
It's that kind of that's the thing.
That's why we click.
That's why we click. That's why we.
The amount of time that I saved by not having to either explain things or
what's Phantasy Star and Sega.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just make it like this anime or make it like this mech, and it's I trust him. So it all works.
Yeah.
And even I trust him to talk to you because I'm oh man, I couldn't be there for half a console game. I'm no. I had to do the Nintendo thing today, and I missed it. And then I was okay, he talked to you, so okay, good.
Oh, definitely. I would have come back to your booth no matter what. I was there for DJ Medina.
Yeah.
He's working on the PC Engine game.
Yeah, I love talking to him too. He is really great.
And that's the thing. Like when I'm walking around, I want to go up to. I don't know, indie developers that are working on cool things that I can relate to.
And you can tell that they're really trying hard too. The Henshin Engine booth, it's got so much passion behind it and color and smiley. You feel just happy looking at them. They're doing what they love,
And for older guys like ourselves, we are older guys now. It's great to see people working on spiritual successors to Space Harrier and Phantasy Star and more PC Engine games out there.
Yeah, PC Engine's my favorite system. So.
And I just got to thank you so much.
Oh man,
thank you so much for coming and talking to me. I really
highlight of. So this con's the highlight of my life for a while.
Yeah.
Just the lineup that they had, and this is a highlight of that. So it's where do I go from here?
I know. So we've had so much fun. I recommend for anybody to come to a video game convention or an anime convention.
Yeah, the Game On Expo really hit it out of the park this year.
It really hit it out of the park.
To John Lester as well.
Yeah, Game Straight 81 for running the entire thing. But go out to these conventions and go and meet indie developers.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. I was talking to these guys
dude, I was panel. He's he mentioned Ease and Phantasy Star. I'm just oh yeah. It's made me cheer inside. But it's totally made my day. I need more people like that in my life.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what we were saying. We wish we lived closer so we could hang out, play games, and all that good stuff. So, anyways, guys, until next time.
Next time.